I'm excited today to have someone from the legal space talking about something that I think a lot of people have questions on or would want information on. So, Jeff Morgan, welcome.
Thank you.
Jeff is a partner at Croke Fairchild Morgan Beres. And Jeff, if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Sure. Thanks a lot, and thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on the program. We are a firm, a corporate finance and corporate transactional firm that was formed a year ago with partners and lawyers from top firms in the United States. So we do a lot of public company representation, a lot of M&A, private equity representation. But the idea is we have talented lawyers, the technology and the software tools to operate a law firm at a fraction of the cost of the big bricks and mortar firms, helps us really get into a space where we can provide top level representation to corporate clients on SEC matters, on M&A transactions, and just in a very responsive and very efficient climate.
Got it. Okay. So let's get started. I have these questions prepared so that you can talk about the specifics and we're not going over the time limit. But so question number one, what are the current initiatives that are resulting in increased pressure for public company boards to diversify?
Well, it's a big issue right now, and it's coming from a couple of different perspectives. One, some states are now beginning to mandate either diversity quotas in public company boards for companies that are headquartered in those states, or are also requiring boards to disclose what their diversity composition is of the boards. Okay. Illinois is one example. Any Illinois-based public company, when it does its annual report for the state of Illinois, now has to report composition of board of directors and executive officers. People have to self-identify in a number of different categories. And that is in effect being used to shame or to pressure public companies into adding more diversity to their boards, because that is published by the Illinois Secretary of State's office. And so last year was the first year in which it was done. We're going to see more of that. We're going to see more of that in years to come. California has gone further and is even now mandating specific quotas of diversity candidates on public company boards of directors. And then the other piece, I said it's coming from a couple of different perspectives, institutional shareholders are now requiring this too. State Street Global Advisors has just come out and with a policy statement saying that it is going to vote against boards in proxy statements if there is not a requisite amount of diversity there. Goldman Sachs has just came out in July and said, we are no longer going to take companies public. We're no longer going to do an IPO unless there are a certain number of specified minority candidates on the boards.
Oh, wow. So I did not know that.
Yeah. So you're seeing governmental and private pressure to make this happen.
So what should companies do to prepare for this?
Well, what we're recommending and what we're seeing a number of companies do is first off, you need to decide as a company, excuse me, how you're going to comply with this. Are you going to seek out certain minority candidates, females, other minorities? And if you're going to do that, you should start now amending your governance charters, your nominating committee and governance charters, to put those mandates within your organization in place. So you can begin to look. So now when you got to think ahead to next year's proxy statement, now when you begin to disclose what your policies are, you've got those policies adopted and you are able to then begin fulfilling them. So I think now in advance of next year's proxy season is the time to take a look at your governance, your governance charters and other documents, and have the board or upper management agree on what the game plan is going to be, so you can begin executing that game plan. So next year, when your proxy statement is filed, you're able to say, we're doing this or we've done this, and you're not caught behind the eight ball.
So how will this affect a company's disclosures and SEC filings?
Well, it will. You will see, as I said in the proxy statement, for example, you are going to be required to disclose, and in your annual report, there are now new SEC requirements requiring some increased disclosure of human resources and how human resources are used within an organization. But also in response to the State Street global advisors and other institutional investors, you're going to be on the spot and they are going to begin expecting those stakeholders and other investors are going to be expecting you to disclose what your policy is on diversity composition within the board and what you're doing about it. And so I think, I think now that will show up in next year's proxy statements and next year's annual reports, but you got to start working on it now so you're able to do it in a methodical, organized manner.
Wow. Okay. So then, what trends do you see for other corporate governance matters?
I think this is increasing pressure when you look at environmental and social investing, for example, sometimes called ESG. You are seeing more stakeholders taking an interest in that, more stakeholders saying we're not going to invest in your company, or we want to see somewhere in your supply chain how your vendors and how your customers are even complying with this as well as you. So I think it is just, we've seen this develop in the last 3 to 4 years. Things have started to move much more rapidly than in years past. And I think we're going to see an acceleration in that trend. There is a lot of money out there. There is a lot of money looking for good investments, but also looking for responsible investments. So I think if you are a smaller company, for example, and you say we have met the diversity, we have decided that we are going to do this level of diversity and this is what we're doing, that's going to be more attractive to investors. So I think it is something that's going to be able to help you in your corporate finance needs and in your corporate operational needs going forward.
I've always been very involved with companies, the two companies that I work for, currently at Baker Tilly in my last firm, with the D&I boards, the diversity inclusion boards. But, after even the first time I talked to you and just hearing this right now, I feel like this is by far the biggest focus that affects the bottom line as it relates to diversity and inclusion. It's like before it was more like a nice to have type thing, or this is something that we're doing to attract people or as a marketing tool, but this is legit. I mean, it's affecting the bottom line and the business overall.
Well, I think there's a potential embarrassment factor too, because you're going to be called on the carpet if you haven't done this. There's plenty of time to do it, but then when you think about also the fact that the number of qualified candidates, diversity candidates, isn't necessarily that great. So the demand for those qualified people is going to be significant. And I think, also, beginning to identify and recruit those people to join your organization or join your board is important. And it's going to be helpful. It's going to help you be able to retain those people if you have these mandates and these policies in place.
No, that makes complete sense. Yeah, I'm interested to see how all this plays out next year. So thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate this. I'm really glad we got to meet. So if, obviously I'm going to tag you on this on LinkedIn. So if anybody has any questions, they can reach out to you directly.
Happy to help. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed this.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeff.
All right.
Hold on one.